was taken from a little booklet called "'Twas the Night After Christmas," and it's written by Janna Lewis. Actually, I wrote a manuscript about 4 years ago, or several years ago, that took about 4 years, and this is an excerpt from that manuscript. This is actually one night, one little dialogue. During that time, I was taking care of my aging and ill father and my 92-year-old mother-in-law, and I prayed daily for guidance in getting them through their turbulent days, actually for getting me through their turbulent days. And one night my prayer was answered, and a little angel appeared to me and continued to appear almost every night throughout this whole period. And this story, a part of this little story that I'm going to read to you today, has to do with a particular Christmas. It was about 2 years into my caregiving stage, and about 2 years into my having this angel appear to me. Her name was Jazz, J-A-Z. She told me how it was spelled. And she was very funny occasionally, very joyous, very loving, very light being. And she gave me answers to my questions and problems when she came. This particular day was, the night, was the day after the day of Christmas. And I had spent up to that time weeks getting prepared for this Christmas. I had made all my handcrafted Christmas gifts and was really looking forward to the day. And on that day, a couple of our relatives, about 24 people arrived for Christmas, and a couple had to hurry on to their next set of relatives. So we, in fact, hurried Christmas that day. And while everyone was eating and opening gifts and eating and visiting and eating and then finally leaving, I was in the kitchen cooking and cleaning. And so I missed the people opening the gifts that I had made. And so as the night, and that's the joy, watching the kind of the smiles and pleasure of something unexpected that I made and that I was expecting them to enjoy. And so that night, after I finally gotten everybody into bed, I was sitting out in the living room. It was, I don't know, midnight maybe, and feeling sorry for myself, and I was contemplating what was the value of Christmas. What is it all about? And my little angel appeared, and my little angel ordinarily showed up in blue jeans tucked into boots. Now, where that came from, I don't know. But this particular night, she was wearing a gossamer gown, and she was sitting up in my Christmas tree. She was a very small angel. And she had been going on for some time, telling me, trying to lead up to the value of the story about Christmas. And she had gone through the creation story and the Adam and Eve story, both of which were forerunners of her Christmas story. And so I'm going to skip that part and kind of go to the back of this, where she starts in about the Christmas story. And she is saying, this brings us to the birth of Jesus, the I am identity in the evolution of mankind. Jazz had been talking for some time as I sat raptly attentive to every word. Her gown was covered in tiny tinsel bows, but as beautiful as it was, it paled next to her inner light. While listening to her, I had been attempting to internalize what she was saying. It made sense for the most part. However, at her words, I am, my attention faltered. Jazz, I know you're on a roll, and it's a good one, I added quickly. I didn't think she could be insulted, but I didn't want to take the chance. You've just come to another one of my not sure what you mean phrases. Will you explain I am before you go on? And in case I forgot to mention it, thanks. No insult taken, she answered my unspoken thought and dipped her head at my thanks. I am often misunderstood. She chuckled quietly as she used the phrase in question. And the I am is even more often misunderstood. Technically, I am is the metaphysical name for the spiritual self. It is the indwelling Christ, and it is in all mankind. tie into Christmas and the birth of Jesus? An elementary question, perhaps, but at the moment my mind felt dipped in wool. As I said before, we have reached the birth of a man named Jesus by moving through the evolutionary aspects of mankind. Man started as a point of perfection in the mind of God and was then given freedom of choice, at which point mankind chose to believe in duality, a belief that states that there is more than one power behind everything, a belief in both good and evil. As you know, there cannot be two omnipotent powers. They would cancel each other out. However, man's belief in them has kept him struggling ever since, often miring him completely in his conflicting realities. But no matter how far down man has gone, he holds within himself a flicker of light, the tiniest flame, the I am, that can never be quenched. And so, over the thousands of years, man has evolved and grown in wisdom, being propelled onward by this innate spark, an almost dormant memory of himself as the Christ, the begotten Son of God, the complete idea of perfect man in divine mind. Jazz had been running her slender fingers gingerly over the tree branches while she talked, and at each slightest touch, the tree shivered in delight, sending twinkling vibrations across the room. Remember our definition of begotten as the evolutionary outgrowth of an idea, she asked. Keep that in mind as we complete our theory. As with all ideas held in mind, this idea of perfect man, so long dormant but held by so many people, must at some point come to fruition. And it did, with the birth of Jesus the Christ. As she finished her narrative, she drew up her knees and wrapped her arms around them, waiting quietly for my response. Are you saying we thought Jesus into existence? I asked, incredulity seeping through my words. In a manner of speaking, with the strength of your desire, and with the corresponding and reciprocal desire of God, of course. Okay, you did it again. What corresponding and reciprocal desire of God? By now I was feeling a little peevish. Being back in elementary school wasn't doing my ego one bit of good. Do you remember the day that you sat at the base of a tree, sipping lemonade in the sunshine and enjoying the warm breeze and beautiful flowers? It was the day you first began to recognize God in all that is. You thought God was smiling at your joy, remember? Sure, I smiled now at the memory many years later. I had been reading a book and one line had finally sunk in, something about mutuality, I think. Indeed, she said, the exact line was, the ultimate oneness is mutuality, not the erasure of self. Oh, right, I remember, from Stephen Levine's Leaning Toward the Light. Do you remember your final conclusion? Her soft, melodious voice echoed my mood of that day. I remember exactly. The day was so perfect and God seemed so close. I remember thinking, God respects me as I respect him. She receives from me as I receive from her. God enjoys me enjoying myself. And that is perfectly correct. God's love is so great and so enduring that it has waited patiently all these many years for mankind to arrive at a level of awareness where that love could be even slightly reciprocated. If you could take your feelings of love on that day and your unexpressed God longings felt every day and multiply it by every person who ever was, is, or will be, you still couldn't come close to how much God loves you and longs